everyone, in this video we're going to talk about pivot chord modulation to closely related keys. So what is a pivot chord? A pivot chord is a chord which exists in two keys at once. So if you think about C major and G major, both of them have the A minor chord, right? So that chord A minor could exist in C major and G major, and if we're modulating from C major to G major, we could be, during that pivot chord measure, in both keys at once. It's going to give us a very smooth modulation from one key to the next. So how can we figure out what chords are good choices for pivot chords? Well, I've written up the triads for C major and F major. I've left the diminished triads out because they're a little bit more complicated. For now, let's just focus on the major and the minor triads. So I've written C, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, and A minor, and then the same triads for F major. So the way we figure out which ones are appropriate for pivot chords, first of all, they have to be the same quality. It couldn't be a major triad in C major and a minor triad in F major. That just doesn't work. It has to sound exactly the same for it to work as that smooth modulating chord. So let's look at the chords we have. We have a C and a C. They're both major, so that would be an option. We have an F and an F. They're both major. We have D and D, and then we have A and A minor, both of those. So all four of those, C, F, D minor, and A minor, could potentially be pivot chords between C major and F major. So let's look at the music that we looked at last time with the modulation. Now I put some Roman numerals in the obvious places. I've left this area where we come into A minor out so that we can figure it out together. So let's see. We start with just 1, 5, 1. When we get to this E major chord, as we talked about last time, it's pretty clear that that's not in C major anymore. So the way that we find pivot chords is we find that chord that does not belong in C major, and we step one chord back and see if that chord works in both keys. That will often be the pivot chord, the chord right before the chord that doesn't work in the original key anymore. So we know this E major, E7 chord is 5, in this case 5/7 in A minor. So let's take one step back. We have a D minor triad. So then we have to ask ourselves, does D minor fit in both C major and A minor? So in C major, it's a 2 chord, right? And in A minor, it's a 4 chord. So what we do to show this pivot chord, to show that we're existing in 2 keys at the same time, is we use this little bracket notation. Ready? Oop. Okay. It's not quite as neat as I had hoped, but that's all right. So on the top, we have the key that's coming to a close. So we're ending time in C major. So that's what this line is telling us. In the bottom, we show what key we're going to, so A minor, and then what the chord is in that key. So we're 2 in C major and 4 in A minor. And then it goes 4, 5, 1, and continues in A minor. So this here is where it gets a little trickier, because we know that G major does exist in A minor. We can't see any chord that has any weird accidentals that we need to deal with. So now we have to think about function a little bit. Which is the first chord that is clearly functioning outside of A minor? So the first chord that's functioning outside of A minor is this G major chord. So G major to C major is 5/1. So that dominant tonic progression takes precedence over it being in A minor anymore, especially as we're modulating back quickly for the end. So if G major is the first chord that is acting and functioning outside of A minor, then we step one chord back and we say, all right, well, what's this D minor chord? In A minor it's 4, and in C major it's 2. So we're going back the same way that we came in. Almost. Oh, so there we have our brackets there. So it's showing in the bracket that A minor is coming to a close with the line, that we're ending with this 4 chord, and that C major, we're existing in both keys at once. C major is a 2 chord, and then it goes to 5 and then 1 in C major. So really that's all there is to it. You find the chord that is not functioning in the original key anymore, usually a dominant. We take a step back and then we look to see if that can be a pivot chord. If it can't, then we take another step back and keep stepping back until we find that chord that belongs in both keys. Okay.